Welcome back. I would like to say that one of the hallmarks of my platform here is to try to give you all a balanced approach to many different subjects, but all subjects are centered around positive masculinity. And so, in my attempt to be objective, I must admit that the video that we're about to watch is one that is difficult for me because there are some ideas that are presented that I feel are out of place. But before I share my opinions, my thoughts, my reasoning, let's get into the video and see what we can learn.
And I think it's hard to be the mother of girls as a woman. And I also think that it's challenging to raise feminist boys.
Having a son, I think of how I want him to be as a man. And I mean, I want to allow him freedom to develop into who he is, but there are certain things that I feel like are important. He needs to be, a gentleman and be, there's a confident, but, still sensitive to what a woman needs. And then, but still, care about what he needs too. And I just feel like as a mom, it is my job to ensure that he grows up to be somebody that,
doesn't to the women in his life. Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah. And I don't know if you feel that way about Judah, but I think it's important.
I do. And I think it's hard to be the mother of girls as a woman. And I also think that it's challenging to raise feminist boys.
Right.
Okay, so at this point, I want you to pay attention to what was said. The aim for this particular mother is to raise feminist boys. Let's continue.
Is, I think, specifically our job as women to boys to raise feminist sons.
Yes.
And it's been a complete awakening, I'd say, for, myself, my husband, my family. It's just, the next generation. Like, wow, he can be soft, he can be strong.
Right.
He can be gentle, and he can also be, very masculine. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. And when we give boys room to show their full range of emotion, that gives them the ability to be open to the full range of emotion that women show. Because, women are a lot more open with their emotion 9 times out of 10. Absolutely.
Do you feel like you have the support?
So now, once again, this particular mother is expressing an idea that I find it kind of difficult to agree with. Now, I do agree with the fact that there needs to be balance within a young man. He needs to know when to employ masculinity and when to employ traits of femininity. Not to be a feminist, but to be balanced. Because there are certain ranges of emotions that have been reserved primarily for men. Now, women do, they at times they display these emotions, but primarily you'll find that men display certain emotions, especially aggression. And then he needs to know when it's okay to be peaceable. He needs to know when it's okay to look at a situation and react from a place of calm, from a place of self-control. Now, I do agree with that. But as far as raising men to have the full range of emotions, when you introduce emotions into a situation that calls for logic, pure, unadulterated logic, and you allow emotions to get the upper hand, do you think that that situation is going to fare well for the particular individual making the decisions? Is it going to fare well for the individuals that are around that person that's making these particular decisions? I'll let you answer that question. Let's keep going.
Partners in that and raising a feminist son.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
And just take a little educating other people. I mean, I can't expect other people to treat my son a certain way, if they're the way that they are. But, I do kind of like with our parents, it's okay that he wants to paint his nails. It's cool. He's a boy, I don't think making him feel like he's doing something wrong by expressing himself or, doing anything that would be perceived as feminine is okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Or that, and it also shows them that they can express themselves, period. They don't have to express themselves in this way.
Right.
Like, I see so many little boys, my son's friends, who will maybe have their nails painted or have a flower in their hair or have a pink shirt. And I'm mentioning like intrinsically feminine things that they're into, just to show like boys can have a feminine side and they can also have a masculine side. It's so important for them to be in touch with both. Exactly.
Yes.
And so I was going to say, even in dating, right? Like allowing the space for your partner or person to have a wide range of emotions or like really express themselves, especially nowadays. I don't know. It just seems difficult. I don't know if you dealt with that in dating. Or
I think some people just need to express themselves in all ways, in shape or form. Sexuality, we have this stereotype as if young women can explore their sexuality, but young men can't.
Exactly.
And then that's perpetuated in relationships where it's like, well, can I be with this guy because he was potentially, or he might have been with some guy, or in an intimate way. So it's like you can't hold people to those standards. So as a feminist, and you're trying to raise a feminist son, you have to allow them to be open to who they are. So it's like you can't treat your girls and not treat your men the same way. And I think nowadays, especially, you see more men that are more open with their sexuality. And our generation, young rappers our age, where they're wearing skirts and they're considering themselves asexual. And I mean, that has nothing to do whether they consider themselves, man or woman. It's simply just who they are. And I mean, they have so much freedom to express that. And you see these old head, rappers coming at them like, oh man, these suckers, this, that, and the third, where it's like, this is just who they are. And if you don't want to adapt to that, that's on you. But I mean, our generation.
Okay. So there's quite a bit said right there, and we're going to try to unpack this as tastefully as we possibly can. Upon birth, an individual's anatomy tells what gender they are. We can agree on that, right? And usually what happens is the parents of these individuals, as long as the baby is alive and is healthy, the parents of this particular child takes this child's gender into account, but you will notice that they automatically accept that this child is either a girl or a boy, and they love them accordingly. And so what that teaches that particular child that it's okay to be a girl, it's okay to be a boy. Either one is fine. And in my opinion, to have that happen, to have a situation where parents are happy that they have a boy, they're happy that they have a girl, the sense of pride is instilled in both their girls and their boys in who they are as individuals, who they are according to their anatomy, then I think that we would have less confusion. Because what's happening is that there's being ambiguity introduced. Ambiguity. If I'm a boy, then why not be proud to be a boy? If I'm a girl, then why not be proud to be a girl? And having pride in your gender entails that there's absolutely nothing wrong with embracing the standards that have been set for your particular gender. There's nothing wrong with that. We have built a society on standards. And those standards help to alleviate chaos, confusion, people going into situations and creating difficulty where there need not be any. Now, that's not a religious thought. That's not a feeling that's coming from emotion. This is just logical. Logical. If we don't look at things from a logical perspective, and if the only thing that we have to offer is emotionality, then society is going to crumble. That's just the truth of it. Because emotionality involves how we see the world. It's subjective. The way I respond to a situation may be different from the way that you respond to that situation, but cold, hard logic is always the same. If you look at a situation, you got 2 apples here, you got 2 apples there, you put them together, you got 4 all day long and most of the night. But that's what I'm saying. Ambiguity, confusion. Do you think that the mothers in this particular video introducing the thought of having feminist boys, that's confusing to anybody that hears it? Can you imagine how confusing that might be to a son that they have? Now, I'm totally in agreement with there being a mother and a father there so that the child will have balance. They won't always be aggressive, right? But then they won't always be cooperative. They'll have balance so they'll know when it's time to employ which qualities. I've learned aggressiveness and masculinity from my father. I've learned cooperation and some traits of femininity from my mother. And so I can move between the 2 groups. But is that what they're saying in this video? Let's keep going.
And I think young millennials are just out there. And I think we're able to put wear our hearts on our sleeves and put our emotions out on the table without regret.
Right.
And I think sometimes that can be challenging or, too out there for older generations.
Yeah.
They might not be ready for that.
They're not used to that. But I think that it is a blessing. Like, millennials are coming, like, this is
coming true.
Because it's true. Like, the older generations are not as open as this new generation. Like, our children specifically are just gonna be so tolerant. And I think that's one thing that we're missing as a society. Like, let's just get some acceptance going. Like, let's get a round table of acceptance. You don't look like me, cool, let's still play together. Like, why not? Why not?
Yeah, when I made that switch and I turned off that thought of men being villainous and everything, it changed my perspective on men in general. So whereas I was dating these macho, I'm a man guys, I was so turned off by that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was so turned off by that now. So now I'm into guys who have septum piercings and who are models and just you can't place them.
Okay.
And that is perfectly fine with me, but I know what they like. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You know what I mean? But but to society, it's like, oh well, that has nothing to do with anything. I think it's so beautiful that a person can just be themselves, and that's what's attractive. That's what's beautiful. That's what's life changing. Yeah. And I think that once people open themselves up to that, you'll be free. It's so freeing. I love it.
Yeah, they don't have to spend
let's unpack this also. She at one time dated really masculine men, alphas, if you will. And then she said she flipped the switch, and all of a sudden now she would prefer men who had various qualities. Most qualities we would assign to the feminine gender, but that's who she's okay with now. But now let me ask you a question. The thought process, the point that she made, let's look at how it logically evolved. The point that she made was that she is more comfortable with individuals just being themselves. She emphasized that, right? So what if an individual, let's say a man, for instance, that she meets is being himself and he's truly masculine? He's an alpha man. This is who he is. So you mean to tell me there's a problem with this man displaying the characteristics and the traits of being an alpha man, and there's no problem with this individual who chooses not to embody those same characteristics? Does that sound hypocritical to you? Well, when I first heard the video, I had to comment on it. I had to bring that thought to the fore, because if you are truly accepting of an individual as they are, would there be a need to make a distinction? Now, of course, we have to understand too that she's free to have her own preference. But now in this particular conversation, it's not really about preference. It's not. It's about looking at masculinity and watering it down to something else. That's the argument that I have difficulty accepting. Let's keep going.
Life healing from their childhood. They're just come as you are the whole time.
That part.
Hello.
Because there's so much healing to do.
Isn't
Amen.
there?
Okay, so now that's the end of the video. Let's wrap it up. I think, without being too difficult or dramatic, I think this is a dangerous line of thought. I think it's a dangerous line of thought. Because if human beings feel that standards that are put in place to maintain direction, to maintain order, have become outdated, they become something that doesn't have to be adhered to, then I think that we're going down a dangerous path. Naturally, an individual who is born a boy is taught what it means to be a man. But that's only if there are individuals that are actively trying to show him, trying to teach him, trying to tutor him. And he comes to value his masculinity. He comes to value the fact that he was born as a male. But on the other hand, individuals that are born girls, there are resources around them, their mother, their grandmother, that teach them the value of being born as a female. Teach them the pride that's involved, the wonderful things that they can do that benefit not only themselves, but their family and society at large. There is a pride that's there. Those particular standards are in place so that mankind can continue to thrive. If there's ambiguity that's introduced here, think about it. Would you be accepting of a situation where you went outside and one day gravity exerted a force of 9.8 meters per second squared, and then you go outside and one day it's 7.8 meters per second squared? Would you appreciate that? Well, at 7.8 meters per second squared, the way that we interact with our atmosphere would totally change. The way that we drive, whether or not there would be a supply of water and oxygen still on the planet, because you see, gravity keeps things in place. That's a law. And so we benefit from that law every day. That's a law of the natural world. I'm making the same premise here. Natural laws that have been put in place are there so that we can benefit from them. A man is expected to be a provider and a protector. And one of the key components of being a provider and a protector is being logical. The ability to shut out emotion, to clearly analyze the situation, find a solution, put the solution in play. Now, I will admit that at times, especially when dealing with other individuals, it is necessary to consider the emotions of the individuals involved. But that's secondary. That's secondary. Primary is figuring out a solution to the problem and putting it into play. We just finished hunting. We brought food back. We need to cook the food. And so the clear objective is to find a way to create fire. That's the clear objective. Now, it may be some differing thoughts, some differing opinions about which trees to cut down and where, or some people might have a sentimental value in certain trees. Okay, that's fine. But the clear pattern of action is to find a source of wood that can be combustible, that can be used to start a fire, to cook the meal, to help everyone around to eat. That's just pure logic. And so I don't understand how teaching a young man to be a feminist will help him in his journey through life. Now, if you're saying that you want your son to be balanced, I can agree with that, because he will need different emotions at different phases of his life. He's going to use different ranges throughout the day. Where he may need to be assertive in one situation, he might need to be a little bit more cooperative in another situation, right? Well, he might need to show some self-control in one instance. He may need to be abrasive in other situations. So if that's what you're saying, that you want him to be able to move between those ranges of emotions, I agree. But like I mentioned, that sentiment that you're raising male feminists, that can be very destructive, because it introduces the possibility that the gender that this particular person has at birth is maybe a mistake. The gender that they've been given at birth is something that may not truly fit them. It may not be suitable for them in life. Because if it was, why introduce anything else contrary to that? It's just a thought. But as you saw from the title of this video, if this thought is something that's being perpetuated, then men in general, and especially positive masculinity, is about to go on the endangered species list. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hope your day goes wonderful. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Be easy.